Well, hello everyone. Welcome to World at War Comics. My next special guest is Eisner award-winning Mr. Dustin Nguyen. Dustin, thanks for joining me today, man. Super excited to talk to you. Very well-known artist in my world, from Batman, and then obviously The Descender, Ascender, and you've worked on a lot of amazing titles, man. But before we jump into that, how are you this week, my friend?
I'm good. I just got back from WickedCon in Boston. So thanks so
Nice.
much. Thanks so much for having me on. It's like yeah, it's really great. I haven't done too many podcasts. I or any like these. I did one yesterday, but I was like, man, I haven't done anything since pre-pandemic. So yeah,
Yeah,
you kind
it's
of run
been a
out of things to
while.
talk about, Yeah, you kind of run out of things to
Yeah,
talk about sometimes. But
yeah.
yeah, no, yeah, I just got back. I say just got back, but I flew back Monday and then I kind of lost a day just unpacking and traveling and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. How many cons on average are you doing, Dustin, a year? Do you do quite a bit within like that Northeast area? You try to stay busy, or you kind of limited
Um,
them?
I kind of limit it because we are in a monthly book, so I mean I have cons are fun, but I mean my job is in publishing, so I
Yeah.
gotta stay on schedule. Usually I just do the ones that are like in California. I do San Diego for sure. I do Ontario Comic Con, which is a great show. WonderCon because it's in my backyard, and yeah, I Seattle, and then this year I won't be able to do New York because I have a Luca, which is in Italy the weekend after, so it's like I can't afford that much time off. Yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Chicago's a great one, so those are the ones I usually stick to. The end of this month I'll be at Dragon Con. I haven't been back to that one in like 10 years. So
Wow. Where's that
that
one
one's a
at,
weird one.
Dustin?
In in Atlanta.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. I had a great time last time I was there. It's a different con, it's a different con. It's
Yeah.
more like it's big on cosplay and I think they go all out on parties, which I don't do too much. I actually don't at all. But it's a nice change of scenery and I always like going back to Georgia because I grew up in Georgia for a few years. So I like to, it's like every time I go there, I'm like, oh, I remember when I was like little, so
Well, cool, man. Probably when you do a lot of these interviews, you get asked very similar questions every single time, man. So forgive me if I ask some of those same type of questions, but a
no.
lot of fans love to understand where the passion for like storytelling came from, because obviously art is an expression of storytelling. Did you have like someone in your life that was really important in kind of guiding you down this path of storytelling?
I would say that someone is probably comics. You know,
Yeah, yeah.
comics was always it was one of those things where comics and music was always there for me. I had an uncle that kind of like he was really much pretty much when I was like a kid. Like I'm talking about like when I was like 5 or to 10, he would like draw for me and stuff. So he kind of showed me how to draw and stuff. But after that, it's pretty much just just a comic book store every time. Anytime I wasn't I didn't know what to do or had nowhere to go, and just wanted to you always felt like you belonged in comics. Like in pop culture was always accepting to whether because I don't always speak English. English was always my second language, so I didn't always. And now it's actually I don't speak Vietnamese as well either, so it's kind of odd. But it's one of those places where comics and pop culture is always there's no matter where you are in the world, what you speak, there's a certain bond that everyone has. It's like, oh, you're into Batman, you're into Ninja Turtles, so am I. So it was
Yeah,
always there
very
for
good.
me. So.
That's awesome, man. And then we were just talking about Wicked Con. I know you do San Diego every year because I've definitely have. You probably don't remember, but I've met you at San Diego Con before.
Oh,
But
cool, dude.
yeah, yeah. So I
You go every
mean,
year,
this
or
I have been like the last few years. I had a
okay?
back surgery about 7 weeks ago, so I only went like a couple hours a day because just walking,
Oh
especially on
man,
concrete, is just
yeah.
brutal without
Is it like a
having
slip
surgery.
disc or it's like a slip disc or?
No, I mean I could get into a long conversation, but I was born with a hip disease, and it kind of put a
Oh
bend in
man.
my spine, and so I've had two spine surgeries within the last year. So the second one was 6 weeks ago, but I'm doing good now. Going through physical therapy and stuff. So
Oh,
I
good
was
man.
walking around. I had a cane that had a little chair on it, so I could sit down whenever I got tired. But it was cool,
Yeah,
man. I got to see a lot of people. I spent a lot of time going to some of the panels because there was so much
yeah,
news. Not Hall H, but I kind of like the comic panels, and a lot of really cool stuff is happening, man. Especially on the indie side of comics.
yeah.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people, like Ghost Machine, obviously Mad Cave made a lot of
Yeah,
noise. I feel like Marvel and DC will always do their thing, but I feel like
yeah,
there's a lot of noise around indies. Are you feeling that kind of same thing too?
yeah. Like ever since like I jumped over the image, I felt like I mean it's been around for a while, but now it's like publishing has changed. It's like Marvel and DC, they're not the only game in town anymore. But yeah, they'll always be around. They're huge. But no, it's I think it's good. It's good to have options for everyone creating, and publishing. It makes it easier for, if you have a story to tell nowadays, it makes it easier. You know what I mean, to get it out there, and social media helps a lot. So it's, there's a lot of creative talent out there, and I think it just makes it easier for good stories to make it out there.
Yeah, couldn't agree, because you kind of wonder, would a Descender and Ascender work in a Marvel DC universe, right? And I'm not sure it would. So to see like Image and these other publishers be so open to all these amazing
Yeah.
ideas, man, it's incredible, because we're getting very unique stories that, me growing up in the 80s, we're about the same age, I think, but
Right.
growing up in the 80s, buying my first comic book around 1983, 84. Really, you bought Spider-Man, you bought Batman, maybe Justice League. Obviously,
Yeah.
there was other stuff too, but that was like, and certainly, there was independence, but it was like in a small little corner of this
Yeah.
giant thing. You know what
It
I mean?
was true independent. It was like no one knew about it. And like
Exactly.
I still run into some of those comics nowadays when I'm going through like the dollar bins. I'm like, oh man, I remember this book. And I'll just pick it up just because I don't think I've actually read it, but I was like, this is like, it's a certain bit of nostalgia just having that, that feel and looking through, and you're like, man, what was I thinking, Or like I wonder if this is worth anything. You're like, well, probably not, because in the dollar bin, stuff like that. But just seeing it brings back nostalgia, and I think that's the great thing about publishing, is like once it's out there in the world, it stays in the world. Um, and yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely, man. Well, I mean, with your career, I mean, you've done so many amazing titles. Is there one that you really like, if you ever got the chance, you'd like to go back to?
Oh yeah, Jeff and I talk about it all the time. I think it's Descender. It's
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
always
yeah, yeah.
Descender. For me, I would say it's Descender and Little Gotham. Those are two titles
Yeah.
I've like. Those are turning points in my career. Descender mostly because I've always wanted to do a space book, and I've always wanted to paint and everything, and it just gave me the opportunity to do exactly what I wanted on the time frame that we had. I mean, schedule and everything. So yeah, Jeff and I talk about it all the time. Like, I was up in Toronto, just visiting him probably a little over a month ago, and constantly we try to think of a way where we can revisit it without changing too much. But we still have stories to tell. We want to tell. It's all about timing too. Like, we're all so busy now. Like, we're on another series with DC now, and then and I'm just like, man, I barely have time to finish this book, and we're already planning our next book. So it's wild. It's yeah, timing is everything. It's like there's so much you want to do, but there's only so many hours in a day. So yeah.
I would think, in your situation, being busy is always a good thing, though, right?
Yeah, it is. I mean, anyone in working in freelance would tell you that, like it's busy is good. It's really hard to plan too, because then you don't want to be too busy, and then, you water you spread yourself thin, and then you're not happy with the results, and then, live with regret. So
Well, I mean, Descender and then Ascender right after that, where the story takes place about 10 years later, and you're getting this like different look at the storyline. Tim, like everything about the comic has been awesome. I even, as before we got on here, just to make sure I remember, because it's been a while, because I think, was it 2015? I think is when Descender came out, if I'm not mistaken, 2016, somewhere in
yeah, yeah,
there.
yeah, somewhere around there.
It's
I
almost 10 years,
like, it's
Dustin.
weird because I don't remember a lot of things, because the way it works sometimes is like we work so far ahead of schedule, and then once it gets solicited, and then 3 months later, and then publishing, and then it's a lot of things to keep track of. And sometimes when a book, like even nowadays, any of my books, they hit shelves, I'm like, oh crap, I worked on that 3 months ago. I totally forgot I drew that. So yeah, yeah, publishing is it's a funny thing. And the thing is, you think it takes a long time, but then also comics are monthly, so once you get it going, it comes out later than you plan, but then it's still coming out. So anytime you're like, I'm just like, do I have anything out this month, or a cover I worked on? And it's just hard keeping track of everything when really you're just at your table drawing. That's it. You forget about the rest of the world. So, and
Yeah.
I guess that's a good thing too. But yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, I mean, it came to like huge fanfare. Obviously, it's been a very very popular IP that you two have created, to the extent where I know it was picked up at one time for a movie, and then it was sold
Yeah.
to I think NBC, and it was supposed to be like a
Yeah.
TV series. And I think you and Jeff were like on the team, right, to help with the production of the TV
Yeah.
series.
It's
Is there anything that you could share? I feel like it's just been kind of a little bit in limbo from a fan's perspective. Maybe you all
yeah.
are working, you can't talk about it,
It's
but
no, I can totally talk. So first, before the series even launched, we sold it to Sony. Sony picked it up. And then Sony or Columbia Pictures, they went through a restructuring. So they had that time frame to work on it, but then the restructuring ate up the time. And then we renewed it with them. And then finally we're just like, oh, let's take it back. And then we took it back and then we sold it again to, I believe it was like a branch of NBC Universal. And then right when we sold it, we didn't really announce it because there's during the riots and a lot of things were going on in the world. And we just, we didn't want to be selfish. We never really announced that, we were happy about it, but we didn't want to be too self-congratulatory about it.
yeah.
With, the climate of the world, we're like, there's bigger things going on. So they held on to it for a while too. And then right now it's actually being purchased again. It's so funny that the thing we've always run into is I remember I mean you've seen Stranger Things, everyone's seen Stranger Things. You remember in one season the kids just kind of shot up and grew,
Yeah.
yeah, they grew back. And
Like
our story
overnight,
is
they're all
based,
teenagers, right?
yeah, and our book is based on Tim, who's a robot who, obviously he doesn't age. And we're for a while, casting and stuff, we're like, what are we gonna do with this? It's like, do we do CGI? Do we get cast a very a kid that's already grown? Like there's so many ways to go around it. It's like, and obviously, that's all like very things that they could work around. You know what I mean? And then we're like, maybe we just do it animated. But it was always one of those things where like it's like a kid doesn't grow. And then we created another property called Little Monsters, which is about vampire children. And our agent, she was just funny. She's like, we had a hard enough casting one kid that didn't age. Now you just created a
A
book
whole
with a
team.
full cast, the entire cast is of children. That she's like, yeah, it's just kind of hilarious. We keep shooting ourselves in the foot. But the thing with Jeff and I, we don't care. We don't care about like, I don't care about the IP being a movie or anything. I enjoy drawing comics. That's all I want. You know what I mean? For me, for the book to do well and for readers to read a good story, that's enough for me. And that's so when Jeff and I create properties, we don't really think about that kind of stuff. We're
Yeah.
like, let's just do a book that we want to do, that's fun, that's just a good book. It's like that's all I really want. And
Yeah.
yeah, but that's pretty much all I can share right now. And Little Monsters is also in the process of
Wow.
uh being turned down. No, just kidding. No, we'll get picked. Like we have it's in the process, but I can already see is like, yeah, we're gonna have casting issues with this, so but animation is the way to go, and I love animation, so we'll
You
see
see
where it
what
goes.
Skybound's done. I mean, Skybound's killing it
Oh
right
yeah,
now.
Skyland's killing
X-Men
it, yeah.
97. There's a lot. Even the new Batman series seems like it did very
Yeah,
well. So, I mean, animation is a way to get around all of that. And I feel with the
yeah,
popularity of manga and anime in the United States,
yeah,
like we're way behind Europe and Asia when it comes to that. So we're still seeing upward growth in that area. And I think that's one of the things that Invincible is really benefiting from is
yeah,
everyone that age group that they're trying to go after are already watching anime, and now you come out with
yeah. I love it. Yeah, I
me
love it that
too.
the world's finally, or I love it that the world has always taken it serious in other countries, but I mean, I love it that now, people are taking it serious here, and that it's just another format of storytelling that's just as powerful as live action, and I
Yeah,
love it. Yeah,
yeah. So there's always that route, and you don't have to worry about aging.
yeah,
Or having to try to find kids that look like they're young
I
forever.
know, right?
Yeah. There's only a few Tom Hollands in the world where even though he's like 30 something, he still looks the same as he did in his first movie.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
yeah, we ran into so many ways to do around it. And it's like it kind of opened up my eyes about how movies are made sometimes, just getting behind the scenes and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah. I've talked to so many amazing people that have had their IP picked up for like a movie, and then it just gets sold back and forth to all these different companies, and they're
Yeah.
like, man, when it happens, right? You eventually I mean, I think you always care, right? But eventually you just
Yeah,
realize, look, it's out of our control. Whatever happens to it happens, right?
yeah, and it is interesting. And it is good to see that there's interest in it. You know what I mean? There's interest in it. Like everyone that picks it up is not because they just want to waste their time. They see potential in it. They enjoyed the stories, and for them to actually be interested enough to throw money at it, it means something. You know what I mean? Whether it gets made or not, they saw potential in it. So that's it's refreshing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, I mean, Dustin, with your career spanning through DC, Image, all the things that you've worked on, now we have this book. Really, the book is the Art of the Descender, and you're working with Zoop, and we have been working with Zoop a lot. We think Zoop is
Oh,
such an amazing
awesome.
crowdfunding site, right? Mainly because they
Yeah.
kind of like, especially someone in your situation, right? If you come out with a book and you go through a different crowdfunding, that room that you're in, you'll be packing and
Yeah, I'll be
shipping it.
packing everything. Yeah,
And
yeah,
no one wants to do that, right? So you have Zoop, which is kind of an all-in-one, like a
yeah.
one-stop shop for someone with your popularity, and people love your artwork. Maybe we could talk about this title that's coming out on Zoop here very shortly. You could go to Zoop right now, and anybody's watching this, you could put in your email, and it'll let you know when it goes live. But it looks amazing. It's the Art of the Sender. Can you kind of walk us through how you came about this book and what fans could expect?
Yeah, I've always worked, I mean, most comics artists, we work at a certain size, 11 by 17, it's big and everything. And being Descender is the fully painted book, I always felt like, I always felt like I put so much work into it. And sometimes, I just wanted a book to kind of like showcase the work that Jeff and I put into it, the notes, the designs, the paper texture and everything. So, a book like this for myself is just a great way for readers of the book that's already familiar with it, or if not familiar, hopefully it'll open up the door to them to go pick up the book, the actual comic. But it's they get to see like all the I don't want to sound too weird about it. It's like when I this is the paper I work on. It's like it's
Oh,
textured.
wow.
It's like it's really. I mean, it's not. It's I don't
It's
know how to say
thick,
it, but it's
huh?
like I
It's
went to
pretty
I
thick.
yeah yeah it's a 300 pound soft press. So um the difference between descender and ascender was when I worked on descender using a soft press, which is a little more toothy. The paper's a little more toothy, and then ascender I went with a smoother paper, which is hot press. But they're both 300 pounds, the 300 GSM paper, which is really thick. Which is why you don't see me carrying too many pages convention because a 22 issue December would be that thick. It's not that thick. It's like that thick. So I don't carry stuff around, but I always want people to see, uh, you know, how I work. And, sometimes it's hard to explain like, the materials I use sometimes and stuff. And, they can see all the textures, all the line work before I erase it. Cause after I'm done painting, I erase a good amount of the line work that's underneath. And I think, the line work, like for me, I love sketching. I love paper. I love pencil. And I think a lot of the energy in a lot of drawing, and a lot of artists will tell you this, like a lot of energy is in the original drawing. Like, like animators know this, like that's why they work the way they do. Um, I'm not, an animator anyway, but I do a fair amount of like layouts and sketching. They're very rough. Um, but for people to see that, they see the energy that, the original energy before it gets published, before I, fix things in Photoshop and stuff. Just to see, the raw art. And I think that's what it is, and just at an oversized uh scale, they can see that. And also, the story, Descender was an amazing story for me. Jeff, he writes some of the, I mean, not some of, but all of the good stuff. Um, and this book would mostly highlight, aside from the story, just we're going to feature all 50 covers. There was more than that because we had a bunch of variants, but all 50 of the original covers that I drew. And I'm going to handpick a few pieces that I really focused on, because the beauty of comics is sometimes there are designs in there that I don't have to draw again. So when you don't have to draw it again, you don't have to worry about creating turnarounds and for someone else to replicate. So I go all in when I know that this is the only time this is designed, this robot's gonna be drawn. I make sure that I put all my energy into that one piece. So, a lot of designs, and then, we're gonna feature a lot of stuff because I always go to cons and people are always like, do you sell a signed copy of that. I was like, no, I don't stock anything, and like I don't really, I don't hand over my own comics retailers to do that. But this would be a good chance for anyone that wants like a signed copy. I'll do remarks in there. I'll do additional sketches. We're gonna have quality prints that people can buy. I think it's pronounced Geesley or something. I don't know how to pronounce it. It's like a fancy print. For those that want it, but we are keeping a really good price point where everyone can pick up the book for, and if they want a premium, they can add on more. I talked to Zoop about maybe offering a few originals of the original pages as well,
Oh,
so
wow.
yeah, so they'll have a chance to pick up a few originals. I don't know if I might have I don't have the originals here with me. It's
Probably
on the
downstairs.
floor.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't want no, it's on the floor actually.
Oh,
Actually, hold on. I can grab
yeah,
it
no
right now.
problem. Yeah, no problem, Dustin. Oh,
Obviously,
wow.
these are some of the originals. So this is how thick an issue is. So um, so you're gonna have like obviously these pages won't be. So I'm still keeping issue 1 and 2 to myself.
Yeah,
Uh, issue 1 and 2 is for myself, but I'm gonna make like every other issue. Like this is one of my favorite pages. It's very
yeah.
Space Odyssey, kind of like super
That's
team
awesome,
layout.
man.
But yeah, so they can. I'm gonna offer a few of those for people that really want a piece of the original. And the crazy thing about that is not crazy, but obviously, original art is just one of a kind. So it's gonna be a first come first grab kind of like pick. So that's what I'm doing this weekend. I'm gonna hand select a few pages, with certain characters that I know that people love, like Driller, Tulsa, Tim and
Yeah,
Bandit, obviously. So I'm
yeah.
offering a few of those for anyone that wants it. And it's not gonna be a lot, but you know, I'm greedy with art. Like I still
I
I
can't
keep a lot
imagine
of my own
giving
art.
that away. I like it would be
It
hard for
is
me to let go, to be
it's
quite
tough.
honest.
It's tough because like every time I work on a page, it's like when I look back and I look at the time, I can almost gauge either I forget that I drew that at all, or I can look at it and I can gauge like, okay, that was what was going on in my life while I was drawing that page. So it becomes very personal to me. So to give up like, some pages, it's very difficult. But I will make it available for for a few people that do want it. They want something a little more. And yeah, I do love I'm very unfamiliar with Zoop, but they did the John Paulione book, the recent Mazzucchelli book.
Yeah,
They put out great stuff, and I think I talked to them. They do have a fulfillment office in Europe, so which makes it easier for people to get the book without paying the same amount for shipping, which is ridiculous sometimes. Because I want books in Europe sometimes. I'm like, man, I can't justify buying a $20 book and paying $80 for shipping.
it's crazy. Even
So
just to
it's
Canada,
crazy.
it's like $25 for just a floppy comic book. Because I've sent them, and I'm like, man, the comic
Yeah,
book cost me
and this is
350 to
Canada.
produce. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
Canada.
and this is Canada. It's like they're right upstairs.
Yeah.
But yeah, the book itself, yeah, I'm gonna hand select few pages and just like just stuff that I want to highlight about the series. And because I do have a lot of people asking, like, hey, they've been asking for years, like, dude, can we get an Art of Descender book? And the more they ask, the more I'm just like, I think it's time. I think it's good to, really showcase some of the covers and stuff. And you can see I I've documented enough where you can see the first pass, the pores, the watercolors bleeding off the page, stuff like that. So working with our designer who put the book together for us in the first place and was Image with Steve Wands, an amazing designer. So he'll do us right. So
For sure, for
yeah.
sure. I mean, it looks amazing. What I'll do is I'll quickly just kind of pull up the page. But this is what it'll look like. The only difference is I've already signed up for it, but right here will be an empty space where you could add
Okay.
your
Awesome.
email. And then once you add your email, right, you'll get a note from Zoop as soon as it goes live. And then once it goes live, obviously you come back and you can make your purchase. You could choose what the add-ons are, or if you just want the book. There's going to be so many different options, like you said, even options for actual pages that you worked on, Dustin, which I think is just insanely incredible to be able to do, and hard to do, which we just talked about. But
Right.
I think that's amazing. And Zoop has just done such an amazing job, especially for professionals like yourself, where if you're getting 400 or 500 people that purchase a book, the last thing you want to do is spend 3 weeks of your time fulfilling that
Right.
on your own. So fulfillment alone,
Yeah.
plus they do the marketing, they kind of do a little bit of everything, which is which was pretty unique in crowdfunding because I'm not sure off the top of my head, and forgive me if there is another crowdfunding platform that does that, but I believe Zoop is one of the only ones that is kind of a one-stop shop for someone like you, Dustin, where you make your work available and then they handle everything afterwards, which is
Yeah,
awesome.
it's great. Yeah, I'm very excited. I'm excited to see how this all comes together. I'm just excited for a book for myself, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's just I think the center was such a important project that for Jeff and I that it's just, I don't think more is bad, more is just good. And
Yeah.
yeah, and yeah, I'm just excited about this because I've never really had a art. I put together books myself, and yeah, it is a lot of work just putting the book together yourself, fulfilling and everything. But I'm like, finally, I get a hardcover, and the Cinder just, we've always gotten like our European collections of the actual comic itself is beautiful. Like our hardcovers, through Image is really really beautiful. But this would actually be, really prestige, kind of like oversized, collecting just the art and not the story. Because they can always, we've published the book so many times. The compendium just came out like this a few months ago, so the story is always there. And but now, something to showcase the art. It's really exciting. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so happy for you, man. And from a fan perspective, to be able to have a book of this award-winning art, man. Because I think you won the Eisner for Descender, right?
Yeah, yeah. We I got an Eisner for best cover artist, multimedia artist. So
Yeah.
and twice. So this is like basically
That's
I won
incredible.
the same award for twice. So which is kind of funny. The first one I won, I wasn't there. I was like across the street meeting with Sony actually that day. Uh, so someone they started texting me. They're like, "You just won." I was like, "Oh, you're messing with me." And then pretty soon another person texted me. They're like, "You just won. Where are you?" I was like, So the second time I was prepared. I came dressed up and everything. So
Nice.
well, I didn't know I was going to win or not, but I wanted to make an event out of it, and we won, and it's finally I catch up with Jeff, who's won so many. There's himself,
Yeah. I mean,
and
both of you guys are absolutely amazing. I'm a big fan of both of your work. I mean, Black Hammer and everything that he's done, even in
oh,
that
dude,
world, is
Jeff's amazing.
incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, I love Jeff to death. I love working with him, and just overall, he's just a great guy. And I think that's what's important about finding the right collaborator with you in the industry. It's someone's not. I mean, there's a lot of good writers out there, but Jeff being an amazing writer and not just that, an amazing person, it makes it really easy to like, constantly like right now we're in our let me see, it's in here. We're in our fifth title together right now because we're and we've already planned into 2026, 27. So that's how far ahead Jeff and I have planned. So um it's just a matter of me drawing it now. Jeff, he can knock out stories like, I don't know how the guy does it, but it's like now I just got to draw it. So
Yeah,
it's so
yeah.
much
That
fun.
that that might take a little bit longer than writing it out, I would think. But
Most of
hey,
the
when
time,
you got a good connection like that with the writer and
yeah,
artist, I mean, even from a fan perspective, it's so important that both of you are on kind of the same page and you're both bought into the story. Because you
yeah,
read comics too, and you could tell when there's a writer and then there's an
yeah,
artist, and unfortunately, it happens a lot, right? Because it's a global market, right? And so you got artists from Russia and Spain and Brazil, and you might be a writer in another country and you've never
yeah,
met, yet you're coming
yeah,
together to produce something for DC or Marvel.
yeah,
And a lot of it works, but sometimes you could tell as a reader, you're like, I don't think they were on the same page, or they
yeah.
someone
They
didn't
didn't
know what was
click.
going
Yeah,
on because the art is not matching
yeah,
the story is not matching the art,
yeah,
right? It doesn't happen often, but you could tell. But when you
yeah,
have
yeah.
that link like you and Jeff does, man, it just flows so beautifully because you're on the same page and you're both passionate about the story. Because the art is just as important as the bubbles, right? I mean, the
Yeah,
art's got to tell that story.
yeah. I mean, for me, story is always key. So I follow Jeff too. But I mean, that's the beauty of creator own. It's like you get to choose who you work with, and then you get to choose what kind of stories you want to tell. And so that's the beauty of like creator own. And it also leads to opportunity like this, where say we just wanted to put out an Art of Discerner book, we could just do it. We didn't have to, really clear with anyone except I just like, hey Jeff, you want to do it? He's like, yeah, let's do it. So it's that easy. And I sometimes I'm just angry. I'm like, this is how easy comics should be. But then it's not always the case, because you run into copyright and like patents, or not patents, but like
Yeah.
IPs that are owned by someone else. So yeah, I understand that part, and there's a lot of IPs out there that we love and everything, but they're owned by someone else. So it's great to have a property like this that's our own, So Jeff and I, we can do whatever we want with it and not have to get too much permission from anyone else. So, and it makes
Yeah,
this
it's
project
incredible.
easy. Yeah, so I can easily just pick out what I want to put in this book, and yeah, it's a lot of fun, and I hope everyone just like looks at it and says, "Wow, Dustin really put a lot of work into that." So yeah,
Yeah, I'm sure that's going to be the result. I mean, everyone loves your art, Descenders and Ascenders, and I mean, Eisner told you twice, right? So, yeah, we know that the work that you have done on these titles have been absolutely amazing. So, be able to have all your art compiled, or at least the art that you feel like should be in that book, because I assume not everything could be in there because there's a lot written. But man, it's going to be incredible to be able to flip through that and see that
yeah,
passion, right, that you brought to the storyline. It's going to be incredible, and the
yeah.
behind the
It's gonna
scenes
be
stuff too.
it's gonna be hard to pick out too, because I think the book itself will be somewhere between 120, 150 pages. Though that's how thick
Wow.
those art books are. But we did have 50 issues,
Yeah.
so 50 times say an average of 25 pages. That's a
Yeah.
lot of pages to sort through,
I feel like
So
that thick, man.
yeah, no, that's a lot to sort through. I'm actually, yeah, it is. It's a very thick. Um, but yeah, this just this be like this super cut, the highlight reel, So
Yeah. That's
I'm excited,
awesome,
man.
man.
Yeah, and we are.
Well,
It's moving up fast. I was like, it's moving up fast because I was like, I talked to Zoop yesterday. We had a meeting. They're like, yeah, we're going live on the 20th or something like that. I'm like, oh, that's next Tuesday. They're like, yeah, we need to gather materials. I was like, crap, because tomorrow, actually, not tomorrow, Saturday, I have a signing at the T-File store in Universal Studios, and then day after that, just start going through materials and coming up with samples and stuff for it to go live. So it's moving really fast. So um, you know, excited.
yeah, I'm happy for you, man. That's incredible
Thank
to
you,
be able to
man.
put, because I mean, you've been when was your first like professional gig, and what year was it? Do you remember? At least
Yeah, it
the
was
year. I'm sure you remember your first gig, but what year
yeah,
it was?
it was 2000,
Okay.
2000 exactly. My first thing was actually a crossword puzzle. My first professional gig in comics was a crossword puzzle for Milk magazine.
Really?
Um, yeah, for Milk magazine. Actually,
That's
let me
wild,
see if
man.
I
I
have
didn't
it.
know that.
Let me see if I have it. Yeah, it's in here. So I have this is the only issue I have. It's a Milk magazine, and inside it is the first page I ever did. You can see the coupons for rides or whatever. But DC put out this magazine for Milk, and I did the crossword puzzle in the back. Let me see if I can find it.
Dude, that
It's
is
hilarious. Oh, here it is. So
oh, that's so
this is my
cool.
my first paid gig. So I've always wanted to draw Batman. My first gig was Batman, and
That
then
is incredible, man.
yeah, so that was in 2000. And this is
Oh,
actually, I mean, I've worked in the industry. I don't know if I consider it working in the industry, but before I did this, I actually worked for Stanley Media with Stan Lee, his old company in
oh wow.
Encino. So yes, I was there while I was trying to break into comics. And before that, I come from an engineering drafting, 3D drafting background. So when I took on Stanley Media, it was like I was thrown into the world of comics and meeting all these artists that I grew up reading and everything. They were working from the time. And then eventually I joined up with Wildstorm Studio afterwards. And my first book that I worked on was called it was an anthology for Gen Active and a character named
Oh
Jet. Yeah,
yeah.
which led to the miniseries. Like I think it's a 4 issue miniseries, and from
Mhm.
there Wildcats. Yeah. So yeah, but my first one was a crossword puzzle for Milk magazine, and I think so it's hanging up in the Milk. I think there's an actual Milk uh headquarters in the US, dairy, milk, whatever. And so they purchased the original art. And DC tells me that, yeah, it's hanging in their hallways with the rest of the art that they probably purchased from the book. And, it's like Milk Magazine. So it's somewhere out there, So
Somewhere
it's
out
kind of
there,
fun.
right? Probably in Wisconsin or something like that, right?
Yeah, I don't know where. I like to say Wisconsin, the cheese capital.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I wonder how
it's so
many
fun.
professional artists got their first gig doing a crossword puzzle, man. That's got to be a very unique way to
Uh,
break into the industry.
I I flipped through this book later, like later on. I was like, it's heavily Todd Knock is in there, like a lot of Todd Knock stuff in there, and he's
Really? He's
Dustin's an amazing
amazing.
artist. He's an amazing guy. He's like
Yeah.
I call him the nicest guy in comics, you know.
Yeah, no, he's
Um,
incredible. Yeah.
yeah. So I looked through there. I was like, oh wow, dude, that's Todd Knock stuff, and I was like, I got to share a book with him at one point. So
That's
yeah,
crazy, man. That is crazy. Well, look
so
at that. It's
fun.
24 years later, Dustin, man. That's an amazing career. Amazing career, my
Wild,
friend.
dude. Yeah, it's
It was
wild.
fast,
So
right?
it went so fast. I mean, when I started, I didn't have kids, and now I got two kids going off to college. So
Oh, wow. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
that's how fast it moved. So man, now you got
That's
me thinking of
awesome.
like I had to take a pause and I was like, wow, this has been a while. Yeah, and you
I
don't
mean,
even
you've
think about it.
accomplished a lot, man. Like I know a lot of the big things that you worked on, but obviously before you do an interview, you want to make sure that you're not missing anything big. And just looking at the list on Wikipedia of the things from Detective Comics to, man, Batgirl, Wildcats, Robin. Dude, you've touched so many big names. Superboy. You've done obviously a lot for Image, Gen 13, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like I know I have probably 20 things that you've worked on in a box in my closet somewhere.
Oh man.
Just because you've done so much, man. I mean, what an amazing career. And you're
Yeah, I have to
still
say
going
that.
strong, bro. You're still going strong, man.
Yeah, I feel like it just started. Like I think after I finished my exclusive with DC, I was like, oh man, I've been here a while, and then jumping over the Image and starting Descender, I was like, wow, it's like it just started again. Like it almost feels like I just started my comic career again when I started Descender, and then every time I jump on a new book, it's just like here we go again. It's like, but it almost feels like, God, I gotta relearn things, relearn to draw things, because you never really stop learning in art. I mean, you find things, you find out things about yourself, things that you enjoy drawing, and then everyone's always like, is there a property you want to work on? And sometimes I think about there is, but then sometimes like I feel like I've checked off enough boxes of things to do list that now like the important thing is things like this, like Descender, like Little Monsters. Just I everyone wants to create the next Ninja Turtles, like I love Ninja Turtles, but it's like you want to create the next property that can become a household name and then just get passed down through generations and live like have a life of its own. But yeah, everything's like I just recently did a cover for Skybound. It was a Transformers cover. And I've been asked to work on Transformers multiple times, even when it was over at IDW. Um, but I love Transformers so much, G1 so much that I never want to touch it. It's a property like Gargoyles, it's like I love it so much that I don't want to touch it. Which is different from Batman because I always want to draw Batman. So I don't know why it's like that. But and then finally my editor that was over at DC, he moved to Skybound. He's like, you want to do a cover? I was like, I really don't want to do a Transformer. I don't want to touch it. It's like I enjoy it so much for myself. I'm scared I'll ruin it for myself if I don't do a good job or but then, I his name is Ben Abernathy and
Oh
Ben and I go
yeah.
way back. Yeah, he was my editor over at Wildcats. He was like one of my first editors. He was my editor at Wildcats when I was at Wildstorm, and then I moved to DC and he became my editor on the last Robin and Batman book. And now that he was like I have this thing where I'm like, I can't say no to Ben. Like anything Ben asks, like I'm gonna do it. So um, I think this is how little I've turned him down. Like I've only turned him down once because I was so behind on work that I actually remember and I felt so bad afterwards. And it was like an old Wildstorm book, but yeah, it was like it hurt me to say no to him that time, and I was like, I'm never gonna do this again. So when he asked me to jump on Transform, I was like, now's the time to do it. And I did it, and it was refreshing. I had just come off Little Monsters, where I worked entirely digital except for the covers. Covers were all painted, but the book entirely was done digitally, um, using Clip Studio and Photoshop. So I just came off that. I was a little rusty on painting. I haven't really painted in a while. And when I painted the Optimus Prime cover that we just announced at San Diego Comic Con, I was like, dude, this is so much fun. I was like, it was like a refresher course that was also like eye opening to like what I could do and what I love doing to do it again. And it was just one piece. I mean, I've painted entire books, but to do that piece of a character I loved and working with paints, it was just so good to do it again. And it was just sometimes just one piece that can change everything. Like you can do an entire book that pretty much is forgettable in next month, but when you do it and there's one piece you really enjoyed and it means something to you, yeah, I loved it. So
What is
again,
harder
that's like
for you, Dustin, from an art standpoint? Because when you draw like an Optimus Prime or any Transformers, there's a lot of straight lines. Whereas when you're doing like characters, right, the facial expressions, it's not as like, I don't know if that makes sense, but I would think doing
yeah,
an
no.
Optimus Prime, right, it's all straight lines, and is one harder than the other? Especially painting, I would think it would be difficult.
I I would say drawing more organic stuff, like if I was to draw Nightwing, Batman and stuff, or Superman, drawing is easier. But when it comes to painting robots is a lot easier because, like you said, it's flat, straight line. It's mostly surfaces and textures, which I love. That's why in the center Driller was always one of my favorite characters to paint, but not to draw. Drawing him was a little more difficult because everything had to be symmetrical. You had to make sure I mean, you can't, I mean, you can, but you can't fudge like perspective when it comes to actual blocky things, like rounds need to be round no matter what angle you're at. Um, but with organic characters, muscle and body and texture and clothing moves so organically that you can fake a lot of it. But when it comes down to painting is a lot easier when it comes to robots because, it's just all texture and flat surfaces, like you said. Um, for me, I have a hard time painting like like characters and stuff because sometimes it's just harder for me because organic things are just hard to paint. But then, that's one thing I love about watercolor is, and you'll see it in like the book in the Art of Descender. Um, I can fudge a lot of things, and the beauty of watercolor is like sometimes I've mentioned this before. Done is done. You can fake it, and watercolor kind of paints itself. So sometimes people are willing to look past. Like I look past, uh, you know, um, anatomy. I look past like uh, you know, actual basic drawing sometimes if it's a good painting. If the color because it's a combination of everything that works together for watercolor. So yeah, I that's why I love working with watercolor. It's comforting. Yeah.
And there's kind of a natural bleed over when you're using watercolors as well, right? A little bit, which I think it
Yeah.
makes watercolors so awesome and unique, right? It's a lot different than other types of painting, but there is a little bit of a natural where maybe it
Yeah,
bleeds
yeah.
over just slightly, right? Just because of the
Yeah,
way
but
it hits the paper and kind of rolls across
yeah,
the paper organically.
yeah. Yeah, you got to be a real yeah, have a real paper fetish to
Yeah.
really and I've always I've loved watercolor. My high school art teacher used to, she says a lot of people they're like happy accidents. Like watercolor just does its own thing and then sometimes it happens and you're like, oh, this works and I didn't have to do anything. I can take credit for it. So yeah. Yeah, that's the beauty of it. I love it. So
Do you consider that probably the hardest type of painting is watercolors? Because you do have to kind of have a steady hand because too much bleed over and all of a sudden you're in trouble, I would
yeah,
think.
I don't know. I don't know the hardest. I don't really paint in anything else, so I don't really know.
Just watercolor, yeah.
I tried gouache stuff. I think watercolor, it's more like the hardest part in watercolor is learning to let go. Because sometimes, the more you try to work it, the more you're gonna mess it up. If you keep adding to it, and trying to fix it, you can't really fix it. Like you kind of just like learn to let go and let it do its thing. Which then the funny thing is like the minute I tell myself in my head while I'm painting, I can fix this in Photoshop. That's when I mess up. And I'm like, oh God, I could have thought that. But you'll see, like if you get the art book and then you get the comic book, you'll look at it and you can kind of compare where I went back and I kind of touched up things in Photoshop. Um, so yeah.
That's awesome, man. Well, Dustin, man, I mean, we got the book coming out. It's on Zoop. I'll make sure I put the link below. Is there anything
Dude,
else
thank
that
you.
you're
Yeah.
kind of working on that you would like to kind of get out there into the world that you're able to share yet?
Well, Jeff and I don't know, we've announced it officially, but Jeff and I have mentioned it a few times. We're on our second run of Robin and Batman. So originally the Robin and Batman came out 2 years ago, and then right before we did Little Monsters. So that was Dick Grayson, and now we're working on the Jason Todd story. So it's Jason Todd at a younger age. That's the one that's eating up my entire life right now. They are it's like the first run. It's 3 issues, but each one is oversized at 40 something pages, 40 pages, and it's
Oh,
fully painted. So that one, that's the project I'm working on now. Putting together our book, and we have one that we're not allowed to announce yet, but it's gonna be
yeah.
huge. It's gonna be it's a book that Jeff and I Literally, I just had another meeting yesterday on it, and it's um it's gonna be slotted in right between Robin Batman 2 and our next Image book.
Okay.
So hopefully we can announce that by New York Comic Con. I won't be there, but the company doing will announce it. And it's huge. It's a IP that's probably one of the biggest sellers for in the way they described it is best selling the original book was the best selling non-religious book in Europe. So that's the
Wow.
property. Yeah. So
Wow. Hopefully
we
you ain't
haven't
giving too much away there, Dustin. People are gonna be
yeah,
searching.
yeah. I don't know. I mean, it could be any book, right? I didn't say what country. I said
Yeah,
Europe.
that's true. That's
Yeah.
true. Good point. Good point. Good point.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
but
Well, I mean, that's
I'm excited
exciting,
about that.
man, that you're so busy and you got a lot of things going on. And so yeah, I
Yeah, I
mean,
have no life. I have no life. Yeah, I have to stay busy, or else I just realize, like, dang, I have nothing else to do. But
yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, congratulations on everything, Dustin, man. It's an amazing career. Obviously, still at the very beginning of it. It sounds there's going to be a lot of awesome stuff that fans could
yeah,
see from you over the next, at least through 2026, 2027, according to what you told me that
yeah,
you and
no,
Jeff got planned. I mean, that's incredible, man.
yeah, it's crazy playing out. Now you just got to draw it. But dude, thanks so much, Tommy. Thanks for having me on here and helping out with spreading the word and stuff. So yeah, it's fantastic. And I hope
Big
your back
fan,
just heals
Dustin.
on its own, man. Hope your back. It's yeah,
Appreciate it.
I've gone through back problems myself. Drawing all day, I went through physical therapy. So yeah, it's all about
Yeah.
working that core now. So
Yeah.
yeah, what they tell me. So I have to, if I want to keep drawing, I have to, we have to keep our backs in place, which sounds so old.
Yeah. Hey man, I'll be 50 next year, man. So
Okay,
I feel
congratulations.
like I feel like around 40 is when I started feeling so many weird things. I'm like, wow, what's going on here? And like you, I
Yeah.
had kids pretty early, so I have four, and they're all 18 and over now. A couple of
Oh
them are
wow.
already out of the house, and one moved back during the pandemic and hasn't left. So you know how it goes, man. It just we
Yeah.
just flow with it, and we
Yeah.
love our kids, so whatever they need, we're always here for them. But yeah, it's
Pandemic
all
changed
good.
everything. So
Exactly.
yeah, changed everything. So,
Yeah, yeah.
but yeah, thank you so much, man.
I appreciate
No,
it, Dustin. Yeah, big fan of your work. Cannot wait to get my hands on this title. Love your art, my friend, and I'm sure a lot of people will be ready to head over to Zoop and plug in their email. I'll make sure I pump this out everywhere I can. And
thank you.
man,
Yeah.
if you ever want to come back, I would love to have you back, man. It's been a
Yeah,
pleasure
for sure.
talking to
Yeah.
you, my friend.
Let's do
Yeah,
this again. This is a lot of fun. Like we'll catch
awesome.
up on our health and stuff then.
Exactly. We can talk about the pains that we're going through.
Yeah. No, hopefully we'll do it again next time. When I can officially announce the next project. So yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it, man. We'll stay in
Yeah.
touch. But Dustin, thank you so much, man. Appreciate you. Hope you have an
Thank you.
amazing rest of your day and a great weekend. Okay.
You too. Have a great weekend.
All right. Talk to you soon, Dustin. Thanks again.
You're still here? It's over. Go home. Go.